Everyone thought she was just another recruit. But the moment the steam cleared, they finally saw who they were dealing with. It began with a confrontation so sudden, so charged, that every heartbeat in the shower room echoed like a warning. The academy cadets had backed her into a corner, their voices sharp, their intentions unclear, their arrogance louder than their common sense. They thought she was defenseless. They thought she was alone. They thought she was powerless. They were wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Her name was Commander Elena Ward, though no one at Westmont Military Academy knew that. To them, she was simply Ward, a late transfer trainee who never spoke unless spoken to, who ran faster than the rest, who lifted more, pushed harder, studied longer, and yet somehow never drew attention to herself. Her presence was quiet, shadow-like, almost intentional. But that morning, the steam-filled shower hall became the one place she couldn't disappear. She had walked in early, following her routine of cold clarity and discipline. The room was silent at first, only the hiss of water, the hum of pipes, the taps echoing against tile. Then came footsteps, then whispers, then the deliberate closing of the door. For cadets, each one with a smirk, each one hungry to prove something they did not yet understand. They weren't predators, not in the way the world fears, but they were boys intoxicated with ego, stung by the humiliation of someone outperforming them at every turn. And worse, a woman doing it effortlessly. Anger makes fools brave. Ignorance makes fools dangerous. Elena took one step back, water dripping down her arms, the heat rising around her like a curtain. She wasn't afraid, but she was calculating. The air thickened, humid and electric. One cadet crossed his arms, another cracked his knuckles. A third kicked the drain cover just to hear metal ring. "We're tired of you showing us up, Ward." The tallest one snarled, "You think you're better than us?" Another added. Inside, Elena sighed, not from fear, but from recognition. This wasn't the first time boys mistook silence for weakness. She had seen it in war zones, on ships, in interrogation rooms, in moments when ego clashed with truth. She reminded herself to breathe, to stay calm, to stay measured. But then one cadet stepped just a little too close, and that changed everything. Just outside the showers, two early rising trainees paused. They heard voices. The tone wasn't right. The pressure in the air felt wrong. One of them, a shy girl named Kara, whispered, "Should we get someone?" The other, a quiet boy who often sat alone at meals, shook his head, but his hand trembled. On the doorknob. Inside, Elena straightened. Her heart didn't race, it settled. The kind of stillness warriors recognize moments before things go dark or bright. "Move," she said softly. The cadets laughed, the worst mistake they could have made. One of them reached out a hand. That was the final line crossed. In a motion so swift the steam barely parted, Elena sidestepped, caught the cadet's wrist, twisted it gently but decisively, and guided him downward until he knelt, breath knocked out, stunned. No violence, no harm, only control, total, undeniable control. The others froze. Her voice, quiet but resonant, filled the room. "I don't want to hurt any of you, but you need to step back." Now something in her tone, something heavy with experience, with command, with lived danger, made the remaining cadets hesitate. Their arrogance flickered. Their certainty crumbled. One took a half step back, unsure. Another swallowed hard, suddenly aware that the person before them moved with the precision of someone who had seen real consequences. Then the door burst open. The two trainees who'd been listening had alerted someone else, and that someone else had alerted many more. Boots thundered down the hallway. Voices rose. Authority stirred like a storm. In seconds, instructors, senior cadets, and the academy's training chief flooded into the shower entrance. Their arrival sent a shockwave through the building. Students peeked from corners. Dorm doors cracked open. Whispers multiplied like sparks when the training chief saw the scene. The kneeling cadet clutching his wrist, the others standing, rigid with fear, and Elena standing tall and unshaken. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. "What is going on here?" he demanded, voice low but sharp. The trembling cadets stuttered excuses, half sentences, lies that dissolved in the air. Elena said nothing. The room fell silent. The chief stared at her, and recognition dawned. His eyes widened, his jaw tensed, and then he did something that made every cadet hold their breath. He saluted. Not casually, not out of habit, but with a crispness that signified one thing and one thing only: respect of the highest order. The cadets' eyes went wide. The instructors exchanged looks. The hallway outside went deathly still. "Commander Ward," the chief said firmly, "I apologize that your cover was compromised." A wave of gasps spread like wind through tall grass. Commander," the four cadets who'd cornered her felt their stomachs drop. Their bravado evaporated like dew under fire. Elena, still composed despite the chaos, gave a small nod. "They didn't know," she said quietly. "They thought I was just another trainee." Someone whispered, "She's the SEAL commander," Another muttered, "We had nitrogen monoxide idea." Rumors spread so quickly, the entire first floor seemed to vibrate with them. Students peered around corners, murmuring, eyes wide with awe and fear. The academy, which often felt stale and routine, now pulsed with shock. The chief stepped forward, voice stern. "For those unaware, Commander Elena Ward is here on direct orders from Naval Command to evaluate training standards." Her identity was kept classified for operational reasons. Another wave of disbelief. The cadets who had cornered her began to shake, not from fear of punishment, but from the realization that they had stood inches from a woman who had led rescue missions, survived ambushes, and commanded elite soldiers in situations they couldn't even imagine. Elena finally spoke. "They made a mistake," she said calmly. "But mistakes can be corrected. What matters is what they learn from it." Her words weren't harsh. They weren't vengeful. They were merciful. And that mercy changed everything. The training chief nodded. "Commander, what would you have?" "U.S. do." The 4 cadets braced for the end of their careers. Expulsion, suspension, court-martial level consequences. But instead, Elena walked toward them, slow, steady, deliberate. She looked each of them in the eyes. "You have strength," she said. "You have potential. But strength without discipline becomes danger. Potential without humility becomes destruction." They lowered their heads. "I don't want you punished. I want you trained." A quiet gasp rippled through the hallway. Elena continued, "If you're willing, I'll take responsibility for your corrective training. But it won't be easy. It'll break you down before it builds you up." The room held its breath. One cadet whispered, We accept, ma'am." Another nodded. A third wiped his eyes. The fourth crumpled with relief. And so, instead of punishment, they received something far rarer. A second chance forged by accountability and honor. What followed in the weeks ahead shifted the academy's entire atmosphere. Elena didn't shame them. She didn't humiliate them. She worked them harder than any instructor had before. Dawn to dusk, discipline, structure, control. And slowly, something extraordinary happened. The arrogant boys became steady men. The fearful became confident. The uncertain became strong, not physically, but morally deeply, unshakably. Their transformation inspired the entire academy. Other cadets trained harder, studied longer, respected boundaries more clearly, and carried themselves with integrity. A sense of unity spread, fueled not by fear, but by admiration. And every time someone asked why Commander Ward went so far to help those who had wronged her, she gave the same answer: because no one grows from being broken. They grow from being guided. In the end, the 4 cadets became some of the academy's top graduates, and each of them credited Elena Ward for the moment that changed their lives. Because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back. And sometimes, it returns in the same place where courage was first tested, in a room full of steam, silence, and truth. If you enjoyed this story, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, and subscribe for more powerful stories told from the heart.